Nintendo Switch with a broken charging port, it seems. This is my son's device and we think he's broken the charging port. I'm normally pretty good with the whole fixing thing, however, this looks quite intimidating. This was an email I received from a viewer who needs a little bit of help bringing their Nintendo Switch back to life, specifically their son's. And look how amazing this case is. It's a me, Mario. I'll never do that again. I haven't opened it at all yet, so no idea what lies beneath or inside, I guess. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. For the person who sent this in, first of all, thank you. I'm going to try and simplify this as best I can if I'm able to repair it. Hopefully I can. If not, hopefully you'll gain more knowledge towards if you're wanting to fix things. Let's see what's going on. Well, okay. This is incredible. This Switch is in great condition. Oh my gosh, look at that. This is what I'm talking about. This Nintendo Switch is spotless on the front. Other, a few little grubby marks on the screen, but nothing a bit of IPA and a microfiber cloth won't sort out. And the Joy-Cons specifically are gorgeous. We got business in the front and we've got a party on the back. Look at these stickers. I can really tell to the person that sent this in that your son absolutely loves this device, which is why I'm going to try my utmost to fix it for you and keep it in the condition that it's currently in. Before I go ahead and plug in my ammeter, which is a device that will explain to me more so what the actual problem is with this console and the fact that it's no power. You have, however, said that you think it might be a charging port, so I'm going to inspect that under the microscope first. Here we go, we're getting that zoom in action. Oh yeah, I can completely see what's happened here. I don't know whether it would have been a USB-C cable or perhaps something like a micro USB that was put in accidentally. The top row of pins though is they're gone. Yeah, they've gone on holiday somewhere, and the bottom ones are okay. So it's just the top. So they've probably put like the wrong cable in and tried to shove it in. It's just bent those pins back. But it looks like, judging by the screws that we have here, the device hasn't been opened before. Therefore, luckily, I didn't put this in, this USB-C cable, because it would have mashed up the cable itself. And what we can do is get straight into this device. Fun fact, the reason I'm able to do these repairs is because of the channel sponsors. Speaking of, big shout out to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. PCBWay's September deals were just too good to stop, so they didn't. The free purple solder mask offer is now extended through October, all the way up until the 31st. And they are still offering up to 40% off flexible TPU prints. Perfect for wearables, phone cases, and bendy bits. Plus, if you're in the UK, PCBWay are going to be attending an engineering design show in Coventry. Dates are October the 8th to October the 9th, and they'll be at stand G20 at the Ericsson Exhibition Hall. Hit the link in the description down below to find out all about it. Thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. I wonder if it's actually got any, have we got any juice? There is a screw actually missing up top. I don't know if you can see it. There's a screw missing up here. The console definitely has no juice. And if I have a look in the game card slot reader, there is no game card in there. What about an SD card? Just before I go ahead, that fell off really, really easy, which isn't ideal. I might, do you know what, for them, I'm just going to include a replacement one of these in the package. I don't want to just chuck this away because it's got a Pokemon sticker on, and if they want to transfer this sticker onto another one, they can do exactly that. Let's leave that on there for the time being though. Disconnect our Joy-Cons and take the device apart. I do often say to people, if you are nervous about doing repairs, because I've been there, I was super nervous attempting repairs, but I think the way that I conquered that was by taking apart my own devices because I was responsible for them, or buying them on eBay, knowing that I own them fully and that they weren't somebody else's. If you're looking to get into this game of repair, that's the best thing that I can recommend. Start with devices that you have that are broken, or not even if they're broken, but if they're just old, and take them apart, put them back together. It's a very underrated skill. Speaking of underrated skills, my eyes need adjusting because there is in fact an SD card just there. Good job I saw that. Another very important tip, make sure you're using the correct screw bit for taking apart a Nintendo Switch. I personally like to use a Phillips 0 for the sides and also the smaller screws that we have here. Using a head too big, you're not going to get any grip and it's just going to turn around. You end up damaging the screw. And exactly the same, if you use one that's too small, you'll end up threading it and it will become a disaster to try and get out. I can confirm as well, there is no serial number on the bottom of this device. A couple of pointers that will make your life easier when you're working with Nintendo Switches. As long as you're very careful, you can use tweezers and just pull up on the wire. You notice how I've got the tweezer all the way through? So then that way I've got leverage that I can use just on the side of the case here without damaging the actual plastics to lift the battery out. If you try and use your fingers, it's going to be quite a struggle to get that out, in my opinion anyway. A lot of the advice I'm going to give in this video is based on my methods. Everybody has different methods. There are plenty of different ways to do repair. I've taken a bunch of advice from other people that I've watched on YouTube over the years, and then I've just kind of adjusted it to a method that suits me and that feels comfortable. I suggest that you do the exact same. To get this little bit of foam off, I can just pull up on the heatsink here, as you can see, there is like a little bit that's loose now. Can you see that? I could just pull that out, but what we might do in this situation is bend the heatsink pipe, or we're just going to destroy the actual foam itself. So I like to come in here with 99% airflow and around about 150 degrees Celsius and just use that on the pads themselves. And then what that does is it softens the adhesive that we have. And then usually we're able to pull away. But sometimes, depending on the age of the console, you can see here that it's not actually pulling off and it's still quite sticky. That foam is probably going to rip, unfortunately. Now that we've got the adhesive though, let's just see if I can pull it off like this. I can do. This is a little bit longer. I'm coming in with the tweezer now and just loosening it. But again, this is just, this is not necessary. This is more so just like OCD, keeping things tidy, you know. I'm pretty sure the foam here helps with the vibrations and maybe a little bit of noise, but I don't think it's, you know, absolutely vital if you go ahead and tear it. Continue with disassembly. And once you get a feel for things, you can just use your nails for certain things like FPC connectors, but that does take a bit of practice. And, you know, if I was to suggest anything to practice getting that feeling with your fingertips, I wear gloves as well. So it took me kind of, I think, extra long to learn how to do that. I would say iPhones and Apple devices are probably the best method of practice for that because their connectors, their FPCs, all of that stuff is so small and tiny. Out comes the game card reader. This little bit of thermal pad here that I've just taken off, just there, it sits on top of the BQ IC, which is the battery power management IC, and it gets extremely hot. When I say extremely hot, it usually runs at like normally 40 to 50 degrees. So that's why that little thermal pad is on there. Again, I'd say, you know, not absolutely imperative that it goes back on. I've fixed a bunch of devices where I've either lost that pad or it's been damaged by forgetting it's there and using like hot air around the area and it just shriveling up or something. Not imperative, but best practice to put it back. Again, with the wires as well, the little antennas, I just come in with my tweezers and use like a little bit of leverage. You want to try not to like freehand pull these up because that's when you accidentally tear things off the board. Exactly the same with the FPC connectors for the ribbon cables as well. Just come in with my tweezers and then I usually just hook underneath. These tweezers are a little bit too big, so I'm going to swap out to the smaller ones and just grab the backlight cable. There we go. As for the speaker cables that you can see, they can be quite tough. I actually like to use my fingers for these, so I just pull them out. I like to take the fan out as well, so that when I put the motherboard back in the chassis, I've got room. You can actually leave it in, and now it's just the motherboard screws. And just like that, we have the board out of the chassis. First thing I'm going to do is just quickly clean up the thermal paste that we have here, because when I'm handling the board, I don't want to get it on my gloves, because my gloves are so ridiculously clean that, you know, I don't want to put any more mess on them. Logically, the best thing to do right now in this scenario is remove the port and then test around M92T36, the BQIC and P13, just to make sure we don't have any shorted components. Because if I go ahead and test now with the ammeter, if there are any crossing pins on the port that are touching, it could skew our results. So let me just remove the port quickly. All right, so I should have the double bubble sort of situation I've got a camera over here that's just going to show how close I actually go to the board with my hot air gun and how I rotate the heat. And I've obviously got the standard sort of microscope view as well. So for this specifically, I'm going to go 450 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 80%. No flux is being added. We are simply just going to go for that port removal. And again, you can see here, it's maybe a quarter of an inch is what I'd say, how far away I am from the actual board itself. This little device here is called a Hakko Omnivice, actually. They're brilliant board holders. Quite expensive, but worth the money in my opinion. So we're just rotating that heat. It's going to take our time. I can see that the solder's starting to melt. So I'm just going to slow down on the rotations and concentrate that heat a little bit more. And when I can see that the solder's fully molten, I'm just going to give the port a little bit of a tap. Nope, not ready yet. So again, I'll keep going. I've got my left hand here with the tweezers. Fun fact, I'm actually right-handed. So that's why I use the hot air gun in my right hand. And you can see now, it's loose. And I'm going to come in with the camera, it's a little bit dodgy. And just remove that port like that. We don't have any broken traces, which is really, really good news. I was meant to record me actually dumping leaded solder on this now. Obviously, it didn't look this good in terms of the solder as I just took the port off. I accidentally stopped recording. So I've just put leaded solder in all of the ground holes and on top of the pads here. And typically what I would normally do in these situations is actually just go ahead and drop a port on, because then you can measure and see if there's any shorts, as the pins won't be touching. But today I'm going to do it different, and we're going to check with the multimeter to see if we've got any shorted components. So right now I have my multimeter in continuity mode, which usually I just say is the mode that beeps, which is technically true, but if I do this in diode mode as well, it also beeps. The reason my multimeter specifically beeps is because, as you can see in the top right hand corner of your screen right now, you see where it says open line? That is my multimeter. When I put these probes together, that creates a complete circuit, and the resistance in my leads is 1.3 ohms, which I think is how long the electricity takes to travel around the leads and make that circuit complete. Either that or it's not as accurate as what it needs to be. If, for example, I have this big ground plane here and I touch one, which is the black one, on the ground plane, and then I come in, well, technically it's a shield, come in with the red one, that's also a complete circuit, and that's coming back at 1.4, which is just a bit higher than the 1.2, 1.3, because we're now taking this shield into consideration, and it's bigger, so therefore the electricity takes a little bit longer to go around that circuit. If this was over 50 ohms, so for example, if I measure here on M92T36 on this capacitor, we have open line. This is actually over 1,000 ohms on my multimeter. That's why it displays open line. I'm pretty sure that's kind of unified with other meters as well, specifically when in continuity mode. If I have something, say, under 50 ohms, and it beeps, it doesn't always mean that it's a short, of course. For example, around the max IC down the bottom, if I ground the black probe and I come in with the multimeter and I touch here, that's coming in at 10 ohms worth of resistance. Take away my leads, that 1.5, you're looking at around about 8.5 ohms or so. Believe it or not, this is okay. A lot of people measure here on this path and they go, oh, I've got a short. I did many a time when I was trying to repair Nintendo Switches in the early days, but this is actually okay. And many other forms of devices have that low resistance. Typically, you see it around chipsets, CPUs, or even GPUs. So not everything below my 50 ohm meter is a short. Meters vary as well. You can actually change it. So you could have it under 100 ohms or 20 ohms or 10 ohms. Depends on the expense of the actual multimeter itself. What I'm doing now is I'm seeing if there's any shorts that go into M92T36. So just like that. Wow, right on cue. This is not above 50, is it? Which is why I'm getting that beep. This typically means M92T36 is shorted, not the capacitor. However, your multimeter doesn't know that. For those with less experience, you wouldn't know that either. If I measure from here to here, you'd think, oh, I have a short. But in 99.9%, actually, I can confidently say 100% of repairs I've done, it's always M92T36. I've never had a shorted capacitor around M92. It's always been M92. If that's different for you and it's actually been a cap specifically around M92T36, let me know in the comments down below. Is it going to be 3 for 3? No, so it's just these two. These two caps are shorted. What about this one? This one is not. This is 184 ohms. I actually think that's meant to be higher. So that 184 reading that I get on my multimeter in the top right, I think is incorrect. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be bigger. Let's check here. I think that's ground. Yeah, that's fine. CPU cap, which is this dreaded cap down here, 137 ohms. Do you know what? I'm pretty sure that's meant to be a little bit higher as well. That could just be because of M92T36 though. I'm hoping the CPU isn't shot here. And let's check our P13 USB cap. That's okay. So I'm going to remove M92T36 and then we're going to remeasure on the board and see if our short has gone. So I'm coming in now 420 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 50%. So what I do is I hold the chip with my tweezers and I'm circling that hot air to kind of warm the board up a little bit. These boards are relatively thin, so I should be able to get away here with 420. I'm just going to wait for that solder to molten. Lifting up very lightly on my tweezers. Very lightly. Pop. There we go. I'm not going to replace the solder here. And again, I've never really had a what looks to be damaged M92T36. They always look fine. There's no cracks or anything in that chip, as you can see. Now, the board's going to be relatively hot, so the readings won't be 100% accurate, but let's see if our short has gone. If I measure here, short, be gone. Measure here, short, be gone. What about our CPU cap, this little cap down here? Are we still going to read 130? Let's see. We are 144. I am a little bit concerned with that, if I'm being honest with you. This is a donor board, which has the CPU cap. Let's see what the reading is on this one in continuity mode. Yeah, 538. I've got a feeling, a sneaky suspicion, something else is wrong with this Nintendo Switch. And I really hope it's not the APU, because it's very rare. I don't think I've ever seen a reading as low as 144 ohms. That tells me that something on that rail is shorted. Doesn't necessarily have to be a short to ground, but it could be shorted to another rail. I'm just going to measure this one up here as well. What do we get up here? That one's gone back up to open line, lovely jubbly. I don't think that's going to change if I go ahead and put an M92T36 on this board. I'm just going to see if I get that reading, specifically 140 ohms, anywhere else. Is our fuse okay? Fuse is fine. I'm pretty sure that cap goes to so many different places as well. So that reading looks a little bit weird as well. You see how it's got 230, 240, it's rising. Maybe that's okay. Just to give you somewhat of an idea, if I click, for example, I don't know, I'm just going to click on something random. If I click here, you can see this cap specifically, how many parts of the board it connects to, right? You can see that by me just clicking. It's all the red arrows, so it goes to this chip on the back here, a bunch of caps on the back. Here we got like a max IC. Watch what happens when I click on the dreaded CPU cap. You ready? Oh my goodness. As you can see, it goes everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. This is not ideal. It's not good. I am kind of tempted just to put M92 on and see what happens, but I don't think that reading's right, so I could be in trouble here. The other thing is like, maybe I just inject voltage. The risk of injecting voltage, I guess, is minimal if I go to like 0.5, 0.75 or 0.7 as a max on the voltage and say, you know, a max of 2 amps, I think would be safe and okay. Anything higher than that, if that CPU cap, if something's shorting it directly to the CPU specifically, and I put more current in there that it's meant to take, then it's GG, essentially. So I just have to weigh up what to do. Do I M92? Do I inject? Because even if I measure all of those locations, they're all just still going to say 144 ohms. So it's not going to depict exactly what's wrong. So I have to choose one of the options. I think the least dangerous is injecting, because if I just go ahead and put M92 on and give it power, I don't want to send 15 volts into the APU. That wouldn't be good, would it? I opted for injection, and this is 0.7 volts, and I draw a whopping 200 milliamps right now, which should be more than enough to at least indicate something getting hot. When I make contact, nothing gets hot. All I see is a bunch of reflections in my hand, you know, producing some heat. Nothing on this board is showing heat at all. 200 milliamps, nothing getting warm. If I flip it over to the back and choose any of the areas that I just showed you, exactly the same story. If I just inject here, 200 milliamps, nothing getting warm at all. All I can see on here is just reflections and holes. I'm going to remove the shielding for the APU, and I'm going to do it again and see if I get a heat spot on the APU. If I get a heat spot on the APU, it's really, really not good. I do think, unfortunately, it is APU. The only other thing getting warm is this IC up here, and I can't remember exactly what it's for. But as you can see from the thermal cam, if I go to inject, can you see that? Hopefully it's not too bright and whatnot. But that is the only thing that seems to be climbing up. There's like a direct heat spot on that IC. If I remove, there we go. Go back, it comes back. That's the only thing that I can see, other than there is now a little bit more heat on the APU. But if I'm going to give this my best shot, so if I inject again around the APU itself, this is the back though, this is around the back of the APU. There's a coil there that's getting warm. But can you see it starting to get a little bit orange? It's just about to go past 30 degrees Celsius. So the back of the APU is getting warm. If I again turn it around and we have the front of the APU here, you can ever so slightly see, if I zoom right in and I go to inject on that cap, can you see just around the die, it's getting warm. Things are like just jumping around. And then if I was to move off screen, that heat is there. Can you see? So it is around the die. The only move that I've got here then is removing this chip. I don't know what it is. This one here. Pretty certain it's married to the board is what I want to say. I don't know. I've spent an extra good hour just kind of like theory crafting in my head how I'm going to do this. Some sources, for example, ChatGPT and some Reddit posts state that specific IC is not married to the board. It's not paired, so you can just swap it out. But then on the other side of things, there's more Reddit posts and a guide specifically from Fix My App, I think, that states that that is an anti-piracy chip and that it is paired to the board. So I don't know. In my head, I was like, well, what I'll do is I'll just take it off, and if I have to reball it and put it back on, that's what I'll do. It's also right next to a crystal, so I was a bit concerned about that. I thought, though, I'd hit up somebody in my Discord. Feel free to join the Discord, by the way. I'll leave a link down below in the description. And that person was Craft Ben Mine. He said, well, Joey, think of it like this. You know, your risk here, what you're concerned about is actually putting the power cable in and frying the board. But what if you didn't have to do that to be able to test? Why don't you just hook up a battery and see if it powers on? Now, I don't have M92T36 on the board, and I don't have a charging port. That way I'm not shooting 15 volts in. It's just the voltage from the battery, which I think this one is like 3.7 volts or something, which, don't get me wrong, would still not be great, but it's a much safer option than the USB-C charging cable. And I said, yeah, let's do that. So I grabbed my battery, I put this up here like that, I folded it over, I pressed the power button, and what do you know? Look at this. We have a Nintendo logo, and we're about to get an error stating that M92T36 isn't installed, basically. We should see another logo, and then that error will pop up. There we go. So I need to put a good M92T36 on, but that just goes to show and confirms the board itself is okay. That reading of 150 ohms, I've cross-checked it with another board with the exact same board revision, which is HAD CPU01, which I believe is the second revision of the Nintendo Switch board, or fourth, depending on how you look at it and how you're counting. And that had 500 ohms on that CPU cap and not the 150 that I've got on this faulty board. So I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. I can't explain it, why the resistance on that rail is so low. It could be that when we go to test the other functions of the Nintendo Switch, I encounter more errors, but all I need to do now is put a charging port on and an M92T36, and I can begin that testing. Now that it's turned on, however, I wonder if it's cleared whatever potential short we did have, and instead of having the 150 ohms, we now have the 500. I wonder if that's the case. Maybe because it hasn't been turned on in a long time. I have no idea. So meter in continuity mode again. Here we are. And let's just probe here. What do we get? 136. How strange. Very strange. And remember, the donor that I have here doesn't have an M92 on either. So I can't turn around and say, oh, it's because it doesn't have an M92 T36 chip, because this measures 500 ohms. How strange. And the board revision, as I stated, here, HAD CPU 01, and our donor, HAD CPU 01. Very weird. So that was an unnecessary detour, but an interesting one nonetheless. Grabbing an M92 T36 from a donor, and I'm not going to replace any of the solder, as you're about to see. I'm literally just going to drop M92 T36 on the pads just here, just like that, with the unleaded that we already have on the board. Got a couple of bridges there. We're going to sort those out. Come in with a tiny bit of our flux just there, and go for the reflow. Those bridges should really sort themselves out. Just like that. And the chip is also sat nice and flush. There we go. No changing out the solder needed. Really quick clean. There it is. Looking nice. Now, technically, we could still run into an issue when we go to charge the device. You know, this isn't all hunky-dory yet, but it's a step in the right direction to show that at least it turns on, you know. A little bit of flux here. I've already pre-tinned the port as well, the charging port, not the M92. Already replaced that, Joey. Here is our pre-tinned port. Just that. What do I mean by pre-tinned? I've tinned the pins on the charging port itself. I can keep the hot air here 420, and let's go. Rotating underneath. Exactly the same way I kind of pulled it off, I guess. Just with more patience this time. There goes the bottom one, and these ones should follow suit very soon. There goes one. There goes the other one. And now we can drop the port on in a second. Just wait for that last ground hole to go. Little tap down, little wiggle. Make sure it's all nice and connected. Just like that. Looks like a good position just there. Sit down properly. Keep that heat on just for the time being. Wait for that solder to come up the legs if possible. If not, that's no problem. Looks good to me. Quick tap. Last hold down. Remove the heat. And there it is. And now a quick clean. And then we can inspect just to make sure that everything's okay. Just give it a couple of seconds to cool down before I go in quickly, because I'll scrape away some components. I don't want to do that. That looks okay now. Okay, board's nice and warm still. How's our port actually looking? Good. We look very, very strong. I've put the shield and stuff back on, by the way, and secured the clips as best I can. Let's just check. Yep. These all look okay to me. Look nice and soldered to the board, which they are, every single one. Lovely jubbly. Okay, cool. Now, I'm not going to wait to put this into the chassis to test. And the reason being is because I need to know, you know. So up here, I've got the ammeter. If I see this go up to 50 to 60 milliamps and then drop down to, say, 0, that is a win. And that is what we want, as well as obviously 15 volts. If I see 5 volts or anything like that, it's not good. Let's go ahead and plug it in. 3, 2, 1. Come on. Good. It's up to 60, 70. Drop down. Nice. That's what I want. That's really, really good. That indicates a good charge without having a battery. And let me flip it over and do the same this side. 60, 70. Drop down. Yes. Okay, let's go. I can put this back in and actually give it a proper test now. Here we go. I guess official moment of truth right now. About to plug it in and just make sure that we get a charging icon. This is with the battery that is installed. I've put the silver backing on because I'm going to have to test the docking station, etc. I don't want to go full like hog before I've tested the essentials. Let's go. So we're plugging it in. That's really good. 120. Drop down to 80. Back up to 120. There we go. Okay, so we get the battery icon, which is fantastic. That's really, really good. Now I just need to wait. Make sure that it actually turns on without that M92 T36 error. Test the game, test the Joy-Cons, make sure that it docks, and we should be good to go. Here we go. I've literally just caught it turning on. I might have been a little bit late on camera, but it's turned on. That's really, really good news. Does the touchscreen work? It does. I need to see if a game works. Big test right now. Immortals Phoenix Rising. We've got nothing on the back, so we should be okay. Please have a game work. Yes, the game works. Cool, it recognizes. That's really good. Joy-Con 1. Good. Joy-Con 2. Joy-Con not working. Why? Oh, okay, fine. I just didn't push it hard enough. Is that rail just a little bit skew with? I think the rail was faulty because it did join and recognize. Maybe that's an issue they had before. Must have been, because nothing's really changed with the rail, etc., has it? Yeah, it's on now, look. I think it just needs a clean because it's connected. And if I wiggle it about, Yeah, it's just when I slide it up a little bit. So that would have been a problem beforehand. I'll give that a clean and see if that fixes it. Does it charge the Joy-Cons? Yeah, both of the Joy-Cons are charging. That's good. Let me give it a clean now. Is that better? Yeah, that's a lot better. I'm sliding it up and down within the holder and it's not disconnecting. And when I disconnect and connect, look at that, straight away. And if I wiggle it back and forth, no disconnect. Perfect. Okay, so Joy-Cons, good. That's ticked off as well. SD card, does it at least oh, I haven't plugged the reader in yet, so I'll test that last. Let's go for the big one, docking station. Here we go. Plug in her in. Plugged in. Can take a couple of seconds. There we go. Okay, so it works on the dock as well and it charges. This is really good news. I have no idea what the issue was then with that cap, and it's really good actually that I have this at least documented now, and hopefully it might help somebody else out there who's wondering the exact same thing. If you have a low reading on that specific cap, it could be absolutely fine. Is this going to have any issues further down the line? Who knows? I'll have to wait to find out. Just to confirm as well, Wi-Fi seems to be all okay. Okay, sweet. That's all good as well with the micro SD card. If I just restart that, because that's where his save data and stuff is going to be, I'm assuming, and I'll give it a final wipe with the microfiber cloth. There we go. Lovely jubbly. It's safe to say I was a lot more unnervy with that repair than what I should have been, but I'm glad I also took the precautions that I did to ensure that I didn't make it any worse. This was a free repair. I'll get it sent back to the customer and hopefully they'll be happy with it. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and as always, I shall see you in the next one. Peace. Big shout out to Ben, by the way. Thank you as always.